Now going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have Anheuser Busch. Our hands post omit Bud Light, yet they were still completely roasted. Which, incidentally, they've been roasted so much. Why not have Anheuser Busch coffee? I mean, they know how to get roasted. Pun obviously intended. Now, they have a little picture come out, and they have a little text. And again, this is from the Anheuser Busch X Twitter profile specifically. So it's not from one of the individual brands, because all the brands have their own Twitter profiles as well. Now, they say, quote, "Working across America to hand you beers you love. That's who we are," unquote. Though, I mean, in terms of grammatical accuracy, I would have noted that they should have been working across America to hand you the beers you used to love. That's who we were. But nevertheless, grammar errors aside, it looks like they have a picture of three hands at the factory. One's holding some oats or barley or whatever, the hops, I suppose, is what they use in the beer making process. Someone's pouring hops into a container, and then someone has a glove on. They're looking at some type of tool, presumably measuring some type of content in the big vat. And it says, "Our hands look like this," which, again, it's not original, it's kind of pathetic. And it says, "So your hands can look like this." And they're just hands holding a Busch Light, a Michelob Ultra, and a Budweiser. And of course, the hands are, in a futile attempt to capture more of a market share, the hands are all different colors, which makes sense. You can cut down on marketing dollars if you have one ad that appeals to everyone, which sometimes works, sometimes alienates folks. But again, this is a company that has a rudimentary understanding of marketing, to say the least. And yeah, it looks like in terms of views, within 24 hours, it got 3,455 views, also known as nothing. Not to brag, but I actually got over 3,000 views one or two times last year on my YouTube. Humble brag. But this is a multi-billion-dollar company, and again, that's 3,455 views. Only 49 likes, which is almost unfathomable. It's just barely more popular than Chris Christie, which that bar is quite low, to say the least. And also, good reminder to like this video. Statistically speaking, we probably won't beat this particular post by Anheuser Busch. However, a wise pilot once said, "Never tell me the odds." Now, getting back to the actual ad, it's also, there are certain things where some say that copying is the best form of flattery, something to that effect. And there's a strong emotional rhetoric a couple years ago where you had a Cole commercial, actually, where you had a father, and I forget his is in the lobby of the Cole facilities, or their headquarters, the offices, but they had a picture where they had a man's hands who were covered by calluses and coal, and it said, "Our hands look like this, so your hands look like this," and they juxtaposed it with, I think it was children or something like that. So it was a high emotional rhetoric saying we work so hard so you can you could have an easy life, to that effect. And in that specific case, it worked pretty well. It's pretty compelling because mining is an incredibly difficult position, an incredibly difficult thing to do. And it is true, a lot of the United States gets electricity from coal plants, and it fuels our lives. But in this case, no one needs an Anheuser-Busch InBev product. It certainly doesn't make your life easier by providing electricity or doing anything great in your life. Most people would argue it actually probably makes your life a lot worse with having terrible modicum of flavor, allegedly. And I suppose you become inebriated to the point where perhaps you forget some of your problems. Though that's definitely not a recommendation. It's definitely not a solution in any form of shape or form. But perhaps I'm alone in this assessment. Maybe everyone thinks it's a great, phenomenal commercial. Well, I mean, obviously they don't, but let's evaluate this. And again, this got 3,455 views, 49 likes, and only 10 comments. Only 10! And not to brag, but I did get 12 comments a couple weeks ago. Granted, most of them were lambasting and critiquing me, but nevertheless, they did exist. Now let's go back in the comments here. The first one, let's see here. Very interesting. John B just says, "Go Bud?" But they strategically didn't choose Bud Light. So again, the three brands that they chose to highlight in this commercial by having someone's hands holding the can is Busch Light, Michelob Ultra, and Budweiser. Which, when you look at the Bud Light boycott, which is the most successful boycott, I think you could probably arguably say in history, especially for conservatives, Bud Light was hit the hardest. Their sales were down around 30%. Budweiser, their sales were down around 12% week over week. Michelob Ultra is around 3 to 4%. Busch Light maybe about break even, not even a percent point either way. So they strategically made sure not to use a Bud Light can in this promotion. And it's funny that the first comment is "Go Bud." Looking at this gentleman, he has, excuse me, 171 followers. Painting for a picture profile. Let's see here. He plays, what is that game the youth play these days? The Wordle. So he posted about that on Twitter a lot. A lot of Wordle. Let's see here. Critiquing Elon. Looks like he posts for Bud Light a lot. A lot more Wordle. It's like, granted, perhaps a rudimentary profile, but it at least appears to be he's not someone who's just going for the freebies, which we look at some of the very few comments that are positive to Bud Light. Well, they're overwhelming majority of the time. There's simply people who want free stuff. You look at the profile, they want the free gift. They say that it's the scam where, oh yeah, just repost and you could have a chance to win a gift card or some rudimentary garbage like that. Maybe a free koozie or a cooler. So the first comment, now granted, no one liked John's comment, but he did say something nice about Bud Light, or Anheuser Busch in this case. And Anheuser Busch actually responded, though they didn't have a modicum of intelligence to the point where they actually liked his post, which again, if someone is, or his comment, which again, if you interact with a brand, it takes 9/10 of a second to like it and interact with them. So Anheuser Busch, their profile simply said, there's nothing better to respond to them. Now, a very handsome looking profile by the name of The Topping Show said, interesting to see what, let's see here. They censored it? That's not. So I gave, not to be too bombastic or too long in my assessment, but I wrote around 3 sentences, and it's only showing the first sentence, and if I click on it, it doesn't continue to show the rest of the sentences that I wrote. So I simply said, interesting to see what brands you're focusing on, and I got 3 likes on that. Now, what I really wrote was, yes, I did say, that was the first sentence of my post, or my response, and I said, interesting to see what brands you're focusing on, and I continued to say, I would recommend focusing on the brands that are not Bud Light. I specifically said, I have not seen Anheuser Busch, I have not seen your Michelob Ultra product, and a lot of the half marathons that I've been running where I have seen them more in the past. So I would say, put more sponsorship, more dollars in that. So I'm going to actually, maybe I'll respond to this. What happened to the rest of my comment? I suggested you put marketing dollars back into sponsoring. If I could spell it, it'd be great. Sponsoring half and full marathons. Marathons with Michelob. That's bizarre. I've never seen that before. And again, I clicked. It's not like there's that button where you click the comment and you'll see the whole thing. I did that, and weirdly enough, it's just all gone. That's weird. Well, I guess we shouldn't be too surprised given how censorious that Anheuser Busch InBev is. Now, nevertheless, that did get 3 likes. Scroll down. Let's see. And Billy says, still won't buy Bud Light, unquote. And that got 1 like. Anthony Leach said, quote, do these cans have a gender, unquote. That got 3 likes. Ryan Tree50 said, quote, what are the genders of those beers, unquote. They got 4 likes. Jesus is Lord replied, saying, I'm guessing you learned your lesson last year, unquote. Getting 2 likes. Curtis A, 67, said, quote, trans hands, unquote, getting 2 likes. Actually, I'm curious now. I'm looking at the hands. I'm actually surprised they don't have any. Granted, I'm guessing the core demographic of people who buy Anheuser Busch InBev products are overwhelming male. But I am surprised they only have 1 hand that has some nail polish or nail paint. Again, because, well, a lot of these companies, I don't know how effective. I would say maybe half of it. I'd have to dig more into the data, but I would say many times it's not effective to try to cater to every single demographic in a single advertisement, which, again, that cuts down on cost, but I think it's better to have multiple ads and multiple specific campaigns. But I'm actually surprised they didn't actually paint any of the fingernails in this one. Now, it looks like there's one or two more replies. Tony Bruno simply had a response or a picture with Dylan Mulvaney on the can, and Dylan Mulvaney dressed up as Audrey Hepburn with the creepy smile, which is arguably as awkward as Ron DeSantis' smile, or perhaps my smile. It's a sad but tough race. And that did get 2 likes. And again, they gave Dylan Mulvaney $185,000 for a video and like 2 pictures to be a brand ambassador for their product. Which again, this person's, if you look at demographics of who Dylan Mulvaney had on Dylan Mulvaney's TikTok, it was like mostly 15-year-olds. And if you look at the demographics in general on TikTok, it is, I almost said Tic Tac, shows my age, that's a candy. But if you look at the demographics of TikTok in general, it is under 21 in terms of the age demographics. And Bud Light thought it'd be a good idea to appeal to try and market towards children. Mentally vacuous to say the least. Now, Ranting Ryan simply had a picture of Alyssa Heiderchild. She is the brainchild behind, she's the marketing director at Anheuser Busch, who thought it'd be a good idea to hire Dylan Mulvaney, which, again, she also said famously she thinks the brand is too fratty. So Alyssa Heiderchild had a video where she said, oh yeah, we think Bud Light's too fratty. We're going to change that. Nah, yeah. Turns out that ended up destroying 30% of their sales, which is pretty much unfathomable in terms of a product having such a drop in sales. And the picture of her, it is a picture of her with a, I don't know how much money she spent on her teeth, but her teeth are perfect, I'll admit that. Still a creepy smile, but she says, or rather there's a text behind her, and it says, too fratty for me, bro. And she has, I forget, it's not the trans pride flag, I think it's just a trans flag with the 3 stripes on her sweater. That has 2 likes. So again, most of these comments are derisive to say the least. And again, I've never seen an instance where they only censored part of the response. So that's really bizarre. So my post or my response is still there, but it's only the first sentence, which perhaps they deleted it because they want to pretend like it's there. Perhaps they're actually going to take my advice and then pretend like it's not my idea. Granted, it's not that much of an original idea to focus your marketing efforts on something historically in the past had been effective. But yeah, it's really bizarre. So my post is still there for now. It's just been chopped down so that you can only see me saying, interesting to see what brands you're focusing on. So that is really bizarre. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, again, it's a new year. Perhaps, hopefully they hire some new people in marketing, but how do they do in 2024 for Anheuser Busch and Bev? Are they going to just completely abandon marketing ideas for Bud Light? Because again, they're spending a lot of money on marketing Bud Light, trying to resurrect that brand. And again, they still have 70% of their sales. They only lost 30%, which again, that's a huge multi-million-dollar loss in sales. Literally multi-million-dollar, like over like 1/4 is $400 million in sales just evaporated. But again, it'll be interesting to see, do they start to focus more on the other brands that they own? Because again, Anheuser-Busch and Bev owns over 40 beer brands. Let me know in the comments if you think it'd be more effective to try to turn things around for Bud Light to get that 30% of sales back, or should they try to build up one of the other brands that they own that isn't yet affected, or people don't realize Anheuser-Busch and Bev owns them, so they're less likely to be boycotted? It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I'm trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a comment, a thumbs up or thumbs down appropriately will give me some additional feedback on how I can make the show better and better. Also, and lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.